So here we have our horror LUTs pack. This is our second LUTs pack. The first one being our cinematic blockbuster style LUT pack, which you can also find on our store. But here you could see the folders that it comes with. We have our instructions, the install for Adobe, the cube files and the 3DL files. And when installing for Adobe, it's changed a little bit since 2017 came out. The folder structure is just a touch different. So let's quickly take a look at that. If you're on a PC and you go to your program files and then to Adobe and then into Adobe CC 2017, then we will go down to Lumetri, and then in Lumetri we'll go to LUTs and then Creative, and this is where you're going to put your cube files. Then you'll come back out, then you'll go to Looks and then to Legacy, and this is where you're going to put the Adobe SpeedGrade files, which is what you'll find in the install for Adobe Premiere Pro CC. You have to install them in both places or it's not going to work. It'll show up in Creative, but it won't actually apply anything. So you have to make sure you're installing them in both places so you don't have any issues. Then if you have a Mac, you're going to go into Applications folder, go to your Adobe Premiere folder, right-click on the application, click Show Package Contents, and then the rest should be pretty much the same thing. Also, if you use Media Encoder, make sure you also go to Adobe Premiere, then into Media Encoder 2017, into Lumetri, and then do the same thing here inside of LUTs with Creative and Technical to make sure that your LUTs are going to work inside of Media Encoder as well. But now let's take a look at these LUTs real quick. If we jump into Premiere, I'm set up in my color workspace, which is a great way to use LUTs. But of course, since they're LUTs, the great thing about them is you can use them in pretty much any software. It's not really software specific, just some certain pieces of software you're gonna need some kind of a plugin to make them work. Just Google using LUTs and the program that you use, and it should be no problem. If you use something like Sony Vegas, a really great thing to do is go to visioncolor.com, come down here to their Vision Color LUT plugin and grab this. It's free, and it's gonna make working with LUTs inside of Sony Vegas really easy. But let's jump into Premiere. We'll go into Creative. And the great thing about Lumetri inside of Premiere is this preview window that you can use when using LUTs. So since I have all my LUTs installed, I've removed all the other LUTs that I had in here just to whittle it down to only our horror LUTs so we could just focus on that only. So now I can just go ahead and click through and take a look at all the different LUTs and immediately what it's doing to my footage. And right off the bat, pretty much everything's looking pretty solid as I move through here. I think the It Follows LUT is looking really good as is. But say I have footage that's not looking 100% like this one. I'm not going to stick with just how this looks. The idea behind a LUT is just that it's a starting point most of the time. And it's a very quick starting point. It just shifts your color space and your contrast a little bit to get more of that cinematic look or the style that you're looking to do, especially if you're not a very experienced colorist. This is a great way to really get high-end looking footage easily. And of course, I can go ahead and add that now if I like it. Let's just add identity. And now I can increase the intensity or bring it down if I would rather, just to get a small change. So even with a small change, you could see that it's doing quite a bit. But if I bring that back up here, then I can come up to basic corrections and I can start making this work better for my footage. So if this is a little bit too much on the cold side for me, I can go ahead here and start warming up my footage just a touch. Maybe bring down the highlights to make the sky work a little bit better, and then bring up the shadows just a touch. And then maybe crunch the contrast just a little bit more. It's just a matter of going through and tweaking all your parameters till you get what you want. There's nothing wrong with just switching around dials until you figure it out what it is that you're wanting. And a great way to figure out what each thing is doing is just go extreme with it in either direction to see what it does, and then make your decisions after that. Then I could boost my saturation if I wanted to. Then of course I could go down into color wheels and HLS secondaries and really start dialing in what I have here. But just right off the bat, that quick correction, you could see how much of a difference it's made. And that was from a LUT that I purposefully picked that didn't work 100% with our footage. So if we jump to another clip really quickly and go through the same process, I'll jump into Creative here and start going through all my options to see what LUT might play best with my footage. And that's actually kind of a cool look. So I'm gonna go with that, Nightmare on Elm Street. And again, I'm going to go back into basic correction. And again, I'm going to want to make the sky play a little bit more for us. Throw up the contrast a little bit more as well. Maybe tweak the shadows just a touch. And just that quickly, we have something that's looking 1,000 times better. Of course, you can add extra instances of Lumetri and really start dialing things in. I probably would to tweak him independently of the sky, so I can keep my sky like it is, but then pull out his face just a little bit more. So that's a matter of just adding extra versions of Lumetri and then using masks to start refining your image even more. But right there, you can see how using these LUTs really makes it easy to get some really great looking footage very simply with very, very little work. And then you can start refining on top of that to get some really great looking images. Check down on the page. We have a bunch of examples of all the LUTs for you to dive into. Hope you dig it. Definitely get the pack and start making your footage look that much better.